don't know how to. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Real Life Podcast. Today we have a very special guest. We have Mr. Marc Mclean on, who's a journalist, author, and also a podcaster who is the host of the Colitis Healing Path. Welcome, Marc. Thanks for joining us, mate.
Good to be with you, boys. I've been listening to your show for the past few weeks now, and I like the chat and also like the direction you're going down. We're getting some guests on as well, so I'm buzzing to be one of the first guys on.
Aye, thanks, mate. You're actually the first guest of 2025, which is exciting. We're only, to be honest, we have been skiving a bit the last couple of weeks, but instead of recording, we've been getting it ready, and we're Kieran, to really push this, because we realised that us two having conversations is good, but us two plus a guest, it's just, I find it brilliant, man. It's an amazing part of the week, and it's something we really want to do more of. And we think that everyone we want on, we want to speak to people that have real life stories, real life journeys. And Marc, you're a very interesting guy, man, to say the least. Like, I honestly think we could do like a series of you, because just the amount of different things you've done, different stories, like being a journalist, being an author, having your own podcast. But tell us a bit about you, mate. Who are you for the people that are listening and don't know who you are?
Okay, good. Yeah, well, 42-year-old guy I'm currently living in Dumbarton with my partner and my wee boy. Became a dad just a couple of years ago. Best thing that's ever happened, so loving that. But I'm really big into the whole alternative health world. And that really happened because I ended up being struck down with no one but two digestive diseases. And just like you guys, I had always been a health and fitness fanatic, right into the gym, was always going for like 4 or 5 days a week. And I suddenly went from this active, fit guy to a guy who was shitting blood in the toilet 15 times a day. Lost about 1.5 stone in weight, and you know what that's like when you're a gym goer. If you even lose a couple of pounds when you're a guy, you're devastated. I had lost like 1.5 stone, and I was even in danger of having colon surgery, like getting my colon removed and maybe having one of these bags, which would have been devastating. So what I was diagnosed is known as ulcerative colitis. It's an inflammatory bowel disease, and it affects about 10 million people all over the world. And when you get it, you're told that it's incurable, and you're told that you'll need to take medication for the rest of your life, and let's just cross your fingers and pray and hope that you don't lose your colon. So obviously that is just horrifying when that happens. And right from the off, it just never felt right to me. I was like, this can't be it. I'm not just one of these statistics who gets hit with this disease label and then I need to live like this for the rest of my life. So straight away I was like, nah, this is not happening. I'm going to find a way. If the doctors can't give me the answers, I'm going to go and find them myself. I had no idea it was going to take the best part of a decade. It was like 7 or 8 years before I got all the pieces of the puzzle. But ultimately, I completely reversed this incurable condition. I've been symptom-free and medication-free for nearly 6 years now, and I just recently became a certified gut health coach, and I'm helping other people to hopefully do the same.
Mate, that is absolutely insane to kind of come around and hit out with that, especially even like the work that would have had to be put in for the 7 to 8 years. How did that journey feel? Like, obviously we know the physical toll it would have took on you, as you were obviously speaking there about obviously being avid with your fitness, hence why you've obviously been like deep into the fitness world and that stuff as well. That would have come with its own challenges from the word go. But see that 7 to 8 year period where you were trying to find the answers. Talk us through that, mate. Like, even from a mental standpoint, like, was that the only purpose that you had, was to find that cure, or was it like you felt lonely? Like, where were you at with that, mate?
Yeah, it's a good question. To be honest, it was just sheer desperation, because I was like, if I don't do this, what happens if this? Because when I got diagnosed that day at the hospital, the guy said to me, listen, take this medication. We're putting you on steroids for 6 weeks to stabilize everything. Then we're giving you these anti-inflammatories. You need to take them indefinitely. And he says, don't worry, you'll be okay because they work in 80% of cases. And straight away I was like, that's not good enough for me. I could end up being that 20%. And I want to basically take things into, and I certainly don't want to end up losing my colon. And basically, it's tragic that happens to a lot of people. They end up having to have one of these bags and go to the toilet with one of these bags. It's just a real shame for people. And I was like, I need to find a way. And fortunately, I had always worked professionally as a journalist. So I was already an expert at researching, digging, trying to find the truth. And there's no bigger research project than your own health when your health is such a mess. I'll tell you how bad it got, boys. At one point, I was like, this was like my late 20s, early 30s. And you know what it's like at that age? You are probably around that age now. I'm 42 now, but all my friends were going down Ballock. They were going to pubs and clubs. And I remember one night, one of my mates was texting me saying, "You coming down to the pub? We're all in the pub." I'm on the other end of my phone in my bathroom with my legs up in the bath, giving myself a bloody home enema because I couldn't go to the toilet. It was that tragic. Like constipation was that bad. My digestive system just stopped. I couldn't go to the toilet for like 6-7 days at a time. I was having to give myself these enemas when I should have been out partying with my pals, having fun, doing all of that. So it got quite depressing as well. But getting back to your question, what I really found was that I was getting pieces of the puzzle along that 7 or 8 year journey. Not all it came at once. I was getting somewhere and I was thinking, right, this is it. Get myself to a good state. Things would crash back down again, and then I would find another piece of the puzzle. And what I now teach people when I'm doing my health coaching, I've also got like this free ebook that I give away on my website called Gut Rescue, and I share within that this kind of framework that worked for me, which ties all the key things together, and I call it MONCS, MONCS. So that's your mindset. Well, for me, mindset, oxygenation, nutritional deficiencies, cleansing and detoxing the body, and then stress. But what I'm actually talking about here is emotional stress and a lot of the heavy baggage, the emotional trauma and stuff that a lot of us are carrying, which we don't really realize because it's all stuck in the subconscious mind. I had to dive deep into all of that stuff before I actually figured out the puzzle.
I can imagine, mate, as well, like just at that age and obviously what you were talking about in detail, mate, thank you very much for sharing that as well, man, because I know it might not directly relate to somebody listening, but somebody will maybe have something like that they would probably be keeping from everyone, that stuff. So thank you for sharing that, mate. But I can imagine at that age, man, was there like an element of your thought process where you kind of felt not so much alienated, but like, why me? Why is this happening to me? Kind of that thought process. And then always what I kind of took from that there, mate, was the fact that it sounded like 2 steps forward, 1 step back for the full 7 to 8 years.
Yeah.
Were you kind of in that headspace of, right, if I'm not going to do it, who else is going to fucking do it? Because the doctors have told you it's incurable. And then you're getting like a wee taster of going, right, okay, I can fix this. Was that wee taste every now and then before it kind of came back the way? Was that enough for you to just kind of keep on like plugging away at it in order to get in the position that you're at now?
Again, that's a really good question as well. And the way you put that, like the 2 step, like the 1 step forward, 2 steps back, that was the whole theme of this, like the whole time, because I always felt like I was getting somewhere and then things would come crashing back down again. But I'll be honest, I never ever got to the point where I was in victim mode with it. I was never like, why me? I was always quite strong with that. And I always just, simply because I was going in my gut feeling, I was like, this isn't the truth. This isn't my story. It doesn't feel right. Therefore, no matter what anybody in a white coat tells me, this is my body and I'm in tune with it and I know what the truth is. So I just need to keep plugging away. I just need to be determined and the answers will definitely come. And there was just no other option. I had to find a way because I wasn't going to get it from doctors. The only answer they were giving me was the medication. And even if it stopped working, side effects and all of that as well. And pharmaceuticals, which a lot of people don't know about, so bad for your liver health. All these chemicals in them and all that, bad for your liver health as well. So it was a slippery slope if I had taken that advice. So I had to just find a way myself. And the first piece of the puzzle was the nutritional deficiencies. And there's quite a mental story I could tell you about that if you want me to dive into that first.
Aye, go for it.
Go for it, mate.
Yep. So basically, because I was in a bit of a mess mentally with it all, I ended up getting in touch with a guy who was my mentor. He was my editor at the first newspaper I worked at. So I used to work at the Lennox Herald, the newspaper in Dumbarton, and my first editor, Graham, we were good friends. And I always remember when I was healthy back in the day, he was always jumping into Holland and Barrett. He was always reading spiritual books. He was always preaching to me about Eckhart Tolle and all of this kind of stuff. And I wasn't listening. I was too busy thinking about techno and going to festivals and all of that then. So, I wasn't really paying much.
Love it.
But then obviously when I'd hit the point where, listen, I'm in a bit of a state here. I really need to maybe speak to Graham and see what all of this stuff is about, how I can help myself. And he's like, listen, I've got this friend who's basically an energy medicine healer stroke naturopath. She's based near Stirling. I'm going to put you in touch with her. Go and see her and she'll fix you. And I was like, wait a minute, I've been trying to sort this out for 2 years. I've tried everything. I've spent probably thousands, every diet known to man. I didn't believe him. So I went through, and this woman, her name's Rosalie, she's passed now, but she was in her 80s at the time, and she looked maybe about 50. She just looked a picture of health. And she sat me down in this chair, and she got me to fill in this really detailed health history form. And it was asking a lot of really unusual questions that I really never expected. One of the questions actually was to do with, had you any vaccines when you were a kid? Nothing to do with COVID and all of that. This was way before COVID, but she's like, if you had any other vaccines, I need to know about them. Detailed all of them, lots of other questions. And then she sat me down in this chair. It was like a magnetic chair, right? And she had in front of me this wee machine. It was called a Vega machine. If you Google it later, it's really interesting stuff. But basically what this magnetic chair and the Vega machine does is it tunes into the frequency in your body and it finds blockages in different parts of your body. The way she worked it, she's obviously trained at it for years, but she was testing different things and it was making a high-pitched noise whenever there was a blockage. At the end of that consultation, she hadn't even looked at my form. I still had it in my hands. She started rhyming off all of my symptoms one by one, like spot on 100%. She knew I had all these gut issues. She's like, you've got no energy. You must be really constipated. Rounded off everything and it blew my mind. I was like, how the hell does she know all of that? And it was just from this machine where it was basically scanning my body and finding all the blockages. And she said and what she did with her practice, she did that to figure out what was wrong with her patients. And then secondly, she worked with like really high strength vitamins and minerals. And based on that testing she did with me, she could also find out what specific deficiencies I had, whether it was magnesium, whether it was B12, all of these things. She knew exactly what to give me just from that machine. And she said to me at the end just as I was walking out the door, she's like, come back in 2 months' time and you'll feel like a new man. And I was like, and it just kind of, it hit me and I was like, how can she say that based on the fact that I've been so ill for 2 years? I still couldn't go to the toilet. My constipation was that bad. I was still having to give myself enemas. And honestly, boys, I was taking that medication, those supplements, within 2 weeks, I was going to the toilet again normally, which was like a revelation to me. I was like, I can actually go and take a shit without having to do all of this crazy stuff. I started feeling more energetic. I was getting good colour in my skin. My hair was looking healthier. Within 2 months, went back to her and I was like a new man again. I was like back to normal. It was nuts.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. It's like, I know it's completely different. It's like when I would go down to the physio, so I've worked with the PhysioFix Ross for ages, and physios just baffle me. I know it's along the same lines where like the physio can just like, I don't know, touch your shoulder and tell you what's wrong with your hips. You're like, what the fuck is going on here, mate? It's crazy. And see when you get to like an expert in their own field, obviously that woman, and you just see how they operate, and you're like, how do they know mad things like that? And I think as well, see, because you were going through that struggle, and then going and seeing that woman and all that kind of stuff, and her being able to pinpoint everything, I think it would have given you a wee bit of belief and security with her. and that would have been enough for you to go, right, okay, I'll try this. Like, suppose, say you went and she went to take these supplements, you probably wouldn't have went, like, right, okay, I'll take them. But see, because she hit you with all your diagnosis before you could even, like, show her anything, you went, right, I trust this woman. And I think as well, you can relate that back to anyone that's listening here. When it comes to you maybe getting help with your health and fitness, or like your mental health, or that kind of stuff, see if the person you're looking for help with can back up their stuff and kind of amaze you, probably go with them and they will be the ones to help you, rather than just going with maybe like the cheapest option, someone who you see on like a fucking influencer or something like that, man. Make sure the people that you're looking to help you out, they can actually back it up, because see if they can impress you, they're probably going to be able to help you. And that sounds like what fundamentally happened a way back when for yourself, mate.
I think it goes to show as well, like, we live in this society where what the doctor says is right. And I think, like you say, your message is all about alternative health. And I think it's something that I'm definitely starting to get into a bit more. Like, I'm looking into different stuff for my overall health. I think the issue with larger society is that, like, you back in the day, the doctors gave you that answer, and it's most people aren't strong-willed enough or confident enough or whatever you want to call it to go, nah, I'm not putting up with that. But majority of people will just bow down and just listen to what a doctor says. And I'm not bad-mouthing doctors at all, but they're not trained in necessarily healing you. They're trained in giving you a pill to maybe sort your problem short-term. So would you say the kind of alternative health journey for you has opened up another world that beforehand you never knew existed?
100%, Ryan. You put it so well, and here's how I would sum it up: is see the mainstream medical world that we all know, the NHS and all of that. And like you say, there's some amazing people, doctors, nurses, and all that run it. A lot of my friends work in it, and it's amazing for when you're in a car crash. And when you've got some kind of acute emergency, they've got all these advanced surgeries. There's nothing better than that, and you're in really good hands. See, when it comes to chronic sickness, like digestive disorders that we've got, it completely fails. The system's broken for that. It doesn't work for that. And a big part of that is the nutritional element, because doctors go and they study at medical school for 6 years. Guess how long they train in nutrition for that? 1 day. That's 6 years. It's
That's
nuts.
insane, isn't it?
So basically, we've got a very two-dimensional health system where they look at the physical body and also your mental health to a degree as well. Health is so much more than that. It's your entire being: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. You need to address all of these areas of your health, and that's when you can claw back something like this. And that's what I had to do. And again, it was finding these pieces of the puzzle. And kind of going back to what you were saying there a wee bit, Ryan, as well, as when Rosalie said that to me, like, come back in 2 months' time and you're going to feel like a new man. See, reflecting back, I know she was being really intentional in saying that, because the mind-body connection is so, so real. Like, you need to have the belief that you're going to get well again. And see, if you don't, you're screwed. And that's a big part of the work that I'm doing when I'm helping people with colitis, because they're brainwashed that they can't get well again, because the mainstream narrative is that this is incurable. So what I'm doing with my own podcast, the Colitis Healing Path, is because I'm no special. I'm a guy who worked it out because I was determined, but there's people out there who've had worse experiences than me, and they still managed to overcome this as well. So with my own podcast, I've been on a bit of a mission just to get as many of them on as possible, get them on the show, get them to share their stories, just to prove to people what this can be done. Because some people will say, right, you're just one guy, you're not a medical expert, why would I listen to you over my doctor? Well, what I would just say to these people as well, your doctor's giving you this single option that you can't cure yourself, but here's people who've been in your shoes and they've done it. And the difference between them, or the starting point for all of them, something they've all got in common, is that every single one of them had the belief that they could get well again.
I like that. I think, do you almost feel like you were destined for this to happen to you so that you could then go on to help other people?
I really, because I'm going to tell you a bit more about the story, because this just and what unfolded was just, I can't even put half it into words if I'm honest. But oh man, get a wee bit emotional thinking about it. But I kind of feel so. Obviously, see now it's been a blessing for me. Is how I would sum it up, because I really feel on purpose now with what I'm doing, helping other people. But further down the line, like one thing I realised was that it's not just physical, it's not just mental, because we had those elements in the beginning, nutritional deficiencies. I got to that good place with Rosalie, right? Health was good for a wee while, but then life happens, and you have breakups with girlfriends. I seem to have quite a few of them. You have people dying in your family. You have all of this emotional turmoil, and then things go downhill again. So I'm like, every time there's any drama in my life, emotional drama, the gut flares up. So that's what was happening. So back in 2012, I had been in a good place at that point, and I ended up splitting up with an ex, and things had been going great, and it was a bit of a kind of bad breakup. And at the same time, my gut just went haywire. And I was like, wait a minute, what the hell is going on here? And then when I was reflecting back with previous girlfriends as well, up until that point, I was just a young, egotistical guy going, wrong girl, wrong time, I'll just move on to another one, right? But at that point, with that breakup and then all my health flaring up, I was like, wait a minute here, this isn't just them, that's you. There's something going on with you here. So I knew there was some stuff I needed to delve into in terms of basically my emotional health and some emotional blockages. And this is where things got just fucking really quite deep. So when I was back in touch with my mentor, Graham, and I was telling him about this, and he's like, right, check out this spiritual teacher, read this spiritual book. And it's learning more about yourself as a whole, rather than, and kind of going deeper and trying to discover more about who you really are and all of that. So anyway, I picked up this book. It was called Loving What Is by Byron Katie. Don't even know how it landed on my lap, but all the best books always did. It's almost like, see, because I was committed to that path, it was almost like the universe was meeting me halfway. And it's like, I'm going to give you what you need because you're staying on this path and you're sticking with it. But that particular book, basically the teacher says in it, if you've got situations recurring in your life, the ones that you don't like. So for me, everything was good in all other areas in my life, but in relationships, they just kept going Pete Tong, right? And they were ending up pretty badly. And it was saying, if these same circumstances keep repeating, you've got an emotional blockage. And that was completely new to me. I hadn't even considered that. And then, basically, long story short, what she tells you to do is, the first thing to do is bring both your parents to mind, because they are obviously, they're your closest relatives. You get brought up with your kids. That's where a lot of emotional stuff comes from. And again, long story short, I discovered it was because my dad had left when I was a kid. I was 3 years old, and that had got messy, and it had left me messed up. And I was then carrying that into all my relationships. Like, there was this theme of abandonment. So what would happen in the relationships was the feelings would get really strong, and I would either go, this is getting a bit much, I'm going to move on to another girl, and I would go and cheat and I'd go somewhere else, or I would need more and I'd get a bit needy and I'd scare them off. So every time it would just end up in tears. And it was just like a bit of a revelation when I started realizing all of that. And I was like, right, this emotional stuff is clearly affecting my physical health because it's all connected. I really need to address all of this. So there was a lot of stuff I did do, a lot of different therapies and all of that, but essentially what I ended up doing, I ended up taking the fast lane to dealing with emotional trauma, and I ended up on a journey drinking ayahuasca for like 3.5 years, and it was incredible. It just transformed my whole life.
When you say 3.5 years, how often would you be taking that? Because me and Kieran were actually talking about this before. And
I think as well, sorry Ryan, just to jump in, before we go into how long you were drinking it for and that stuff, man, go into detail about what it actually is, because I had to ask Ryan, I was like, what actually is it? And I feel like a lot of people listen to it, like, I couldn't even, like, I am dyslexic as they come, like, literally diagnosed dyslexic, so see, try to read that word, I was like, Ryan, what the fuck is that even? I was like, I don't even know, I'm not even going to try it. But take a wee deep dive into what ayahuasca actually is, and then we can kind of reflect on that journey, how it it helped you obviously grow as a person. But see, before you kind of go on and explain that, I think as well what would be quite cool to address here, mate, is you took a lot of ownership in situations where people would look at the external factors. Like, for instance, the girls, they would blame the women for the breakups and that stuff. And I think there's a lesson in there for anyone listening here. Like, see, if you want to grow as a person, go to that next level, whatever it may be, right, professionally, and your fitness, whatever, it all comes down to ownership and looking for the answers internally. Do you know what I mean? And that's exactly what you've done there, Mark. And then obviously that's what's led you on to this path. And I just kind of wanted to chime in there because there was a massive lesson in there of taking ownership, and that is fundamentally one of the biggest benefits you can do to yourself in your life across the board. But I just wanted to chime in with that, mate. But before you go on, like, how would you explain what ayahuasca actually is?
Right, cool. So basically, for anyone that's new, it's an Amazonian medicine. It's basically like a tea, and it's brewed by 2 specific plants that were found in the Amazonian medicine. And indigenous tribes have been drinking this stuff for like thousands of years. So we've got our Western medical makeup, how we deal with things. They deal with things a completely different way in the jungle, and they're a lot more balanced than us. So they've been using this medicine for thousands of years. Number one, it's the most powerful medicine on the planet for emotional healing. There's nothing better than it. But secondly, there's a big spiritual element to it as well. It connects you to basically your higher self, to higher plane. And what it also does is it cracks open your subconscious mind. It takes you back to and shows you what you need to fix, because it's a psychedelic substance. So when you drink it, you go in this journey for like 4 or 5 hours, and almost like a kind of dream state, but it starts showing you what you've not been able to see about yourself, and it starts helping you to process stuff that you never processed earlier in your life, so that you can finally let it go and it doesn't control you anymore.
That's pretty cool, man. It's like a very, like, the way I kind of take it is like, it sounds like a longer lasting DMT. Is it kind of similar to that molecule?
DMT is within it. That's what.
Is it within? Right. Okay.
So that's what kickstarts the psychedelic effects. That's one of the chemicals within it. But the main benefit of it is it's just really it's a medicine. It's therapeutic. The thing with people smoke DMT and they go on crazy experiences, but people use ayahuasca as a medicine to really get healing. And a lot of people come to it when they're really at their lowest point of their lives, and that's what happened with me. I was in a terrible state when I ended up getting it, and I'll let you know exactly how it happened and how I knew it was for me. It wasn't a case of somebody suggested that. What had happened, just like I had mentioned earlier, when you're on that path, when you're committed to figuring this out yourself, I strongly believe that if you have the faith, you're going to get a helping hand, and that because I know from experience that's what happened. So yet again, there was another breakup. This one was in 2017, right? So I already knew intellectually it was me. I already, even with that girlfriend I was with at the time, I even says to her, listen, I'm messed up. I've got shit that I need to work on. I'll try my best. And we both gave it a go. She had her stuff as well. In the end, it just didn't work out. And at that one, I broke off. When I broke off, I was like, listen, I'm 35 years old. I'm back living with my mum. This isn't what I wanted for my life. I'm back living with my parents, being a total state. Yet another breakup. What the fuck's going on? So I did what I used to always do, based on what my friend Graham told me, and I started looking up my spiritual teachers, all the people I'd follow, just to try and get maybe just some words of wisdom, just to kind of calm the nervous system, just to chill me out. And I remember being in the bedroom in my mum's house, flicking through Instagram, and there was a guy I followed back then. His name's Dr. Wayne Dyer, and I'd read a few of his books. One of them called The Power of Intention. Just loved the guy for many years. I really connected with his teachings. But just this very day, I'd been following him for years, and this very day I went onto his Instagram page. There was a video about him talking about ayahuasca. I was like, wow, that's that psychedelic drug. What's he doing talking about that? That's what I thought it was back then. And then suddenly he starts talking about, it's like, this is not a drug. This is a medicine. This connects you to your higher self. This is like something really divine and special. And something just clicked. I was like, I need that.
Mm.
I need this ayahuasca. He was talking about emotional healing. 2 days later, I was in a country cottage in Holland with two people I'd met like an hour earlier, and I'm drinking this medicine, and I'm on this journey for 5-6 hours, and it just shook up my entire world.
Yeah, class, man. The crazy Dutch butt, man, innit? Definitely. But nah, brilliant, mate. Sorry, mate. But no, it's pretty cool, man, because I think as if there is a stimulus, especially in, like, not a stimulus, a perceived projection of what psychedelics are and all that stuff, especially in like Scotland, because like I know from when I was younger, man, it was like you would just go pick mushies and just go out your nut. Like that was the only benefit of it, that kind of stuff. But what I've noticed is recently, man, the psychedelics are becoming a bit more prominent, especially to help with like your mental health or that kind of stuff. Like I've dabbled with like microdosing mushrooms. I'll be honest, I didn't like them. It just made me feel a certain, nothing bad. I just felt like by the end of the day, I just felt a bit horrible. So it just wasn't for me. But I've noticed that a lot of people have took a big dive into them, and there's a lot of benefit, especially in the fitness world. A lot of runners will dive into psychedelics, man. But what was the immediate changes, or not so much physical changes, but mental changes and perspectives that you received when you started drinking this, especially over the 3-year period?
Okay, so the way it works when you drink ayahuasca is basically taken in is what they call a ceremony. So you really they do it really proper. They treat it with a lot of reverence and respect. And this is a medicine that they've used for thousands of years. So you sit down, you take it, and you need to get yourself what they call setting, and intention. So that when you drink it with all of those elements properly in place, you're not going to have what people call a bad trip. Really, you're going to get the therapeutic benefits. So set is just being in a good place, you're ready for it, you know that it's for you, and I felt that it was. Setting is who's with you. Is it caring people? Is it folk who are there to look after you? That was these facilitators who ran the retreat that I went to in Holland, so I was. And then your intention is what you want to get out of it. And for me, as you probably would have guessed, I was like, I want to know why all of these breakups keep, how all these relationships keep ending in heartbreak, and how I can fix myself to basically go over all of this, why this keeps happening. I wanted to see what was behind it, because I couldn't see into my subconscious mind. What ayahuasca does is it peels back the veil and it shows you exactly what's going on. So the first, I did 2 ceremonies, and the second one was where the magic happened. That lasted about 6 hours. Some people drink 1 cup. I ended up drinking 3 cups that day. And the third one, basically what had happened, it transported me back to childhood. Like, fucking hell. Sorry, boys. That was the biggest moment in my life. So that's why I need to take a wee bit of a breather when I talk about it. But essentially, it showed me that in childhood, I wasn't kind to myself. I thought I wasn't good enough, all of that, you know. Fucking hell, mate. Boys, I didn't. You maybe need to cut some of this out. I'm getting a bit emotional talking about it.
Mate, it's raw and honest, mate. So don't be daft, man.
This is what it's all about.
Simply because it was just the single biggest thing in my life. It was just like this. Here's this broken wee boy. He doesn't think he's good enough. He was abandoned as a kid. He's getting no love, this, that, and the other. And it's like, we're giving you the love. We're filling you up. And I had this purge. Like, I was on the toilet for about 2 hours, purging out all of this negative energy that I'd built up in my entire life. And it cleared it all out. And honestly, boys, you couldn't get that in a lifetime of therapy. And I got it in that one journey. So it got a wee bit heavy there. It gets emotional because it was the biggest turning point in my life. And I can't say anything. I can't put into words how powerful it was for me, and how grateful I am that I came across it. So then beyond that, came back, I felt completely renewed. Felt it was the best thing that ever happened to me. But again, you're up in the clouds. You need to come back to the west of Scotland and plug yourself back in. And you know, life still goes on round about you, and you need to try and adapt. So there was still more work I had to do, and I ended up going to a retreat in Spain where they did ceremonies as well, and I had like another 6 or 7 ceremonies over the years, and they were just really good. They were just dead nourishing. They were just nourishing the soul. I was getting into them and I was drinking them, and it's just building you up, just showing you like how good you are and what you can do, and just giving you love. It's the medicine. It's just all about love, and I can't do it justice. But that it lasted 3.5 years, and it completely transformed my world. I'm now what happened. It's mad because during the pandemic, I ended up getting together with a girl who I had been friends with for like 25 years. We were just pals. I never really thought I had much of a chance. We got together during the pandemic. I think she maybe saw a change in me. And that's us being together 4 years, and we've got a 2-year-old boy, and life's good.
Dynamite, mate. I'm actually really happy to hear that, mate. Congratulations, man. And that is like, see as well what you were saying, and apologies about obviously having to pause and that kind of stuff. It's like, I think when you have such a pivotal moment in life, like it's going to bring out raw emotion anytime you talk about it. Do you know what I mean? And like, that's when you know, it's like you go looking for big answers, mate, you're going to get a big reaction. Always, man. Do you know what I mean? And the fact that you are dead passionate and you're so aware that was a massive turning point. I think through your teachings and how you broadcast yourself, and obviously through your books, and even obviously the book that you've brought out about ayahuasca, like I think like a lot of people look into it and don't stop with this message, because even like me, I'm quite big in the fitness world. I'm quite big in mental health through my own struggles, and I don't even know what it is. And if there's something out there like that can have such a dramatic effect in 3 years, it should be broadcasted and spoke about and brought into mainstream media. And people like yourself are going to be the ones to do that, because you know what it's like. It's the pharmaceutical companies that might not make as much money off it. So people like yourself need to broadcast that, mate. And with your message, mate, but it sounds like, mate, you will, and you already have helped a lot of people, mate. So you should be very, very proud of that, mate.
Cheers. I really appreciate that. And like you say, you mentioned the book there, because it had such a big impact on me, and because obviously I had these journalistic skills, I spent the next 2 years interviewing people from all over the world about their transformational experiences, and that's what's in the book. The book's not really about me. There's one chapter about me, but the rest of it is about these other people whose lives it's transformed as well. And yep, listen, you're totally right. And based on what I learned on my healing journey and managing to overcome colitis as well, it became clear that emotional trauma is an element, and there's nobody on this planet that doesn't have some emotional baggage. It's just part of life. We all go through death, we go through breakups, people leave us, this, that, and the other. It's just, for some people, if it happens maybe too young, or if some of it's quite heavy, it can keep affecting them as adults. Now, psychedelics aren't for everybody. Ayahuasca can be a rough ride. My second experience was terrifying, but what I would say is that it's still important for people who do have chronic health issues to acknowledge their emotional health and the fact that they might have some underlying emotional blockages. In fact, it's 99.9% certain they will have some emotional blockages to some degree. Now, what I'm doing with my health coaching, I help people. I kind of work with people, speaking to them. I'm not one of these health coaches who says you should do X, Y, and Z. I just chat with people, and I'm almost like just a mirror for them, and I ask them specific questions, and I can see their brain turning. And it's like, well, why do you think that's happened? Did you react that way? And we start digging up stuff, and honestly, I'm finding a lot of people have got emotional stuff tied in with the physical issues they're experiencing. So what I'm trying to find now are just different ways, more simpler ways beyond psychedelics that are more accessible to people. And one of them that I'm really tuning into at the moment, and I'm actually training in it at the moment, is EFT tapping. You know, that emotional freedom technique. You've ever heard of it before? Where you're tapping different meridian points in the body.
Right.
But when you're doing that at the same time as speaking out loud stuff that maybe gives you anxiousness, anxiety, maybe, for example, like I had an argument with my boss last night, and I'm tapping at the same time. What it's doing is it's calming down your nervous system while you're also speaking it, and you're able to process some of the emotions. So that's much more accessible. You don't need to go on a crazy 6-hour journey with psychedelics, and you don't need to sit drinking the stuff with strangers in Holland. And that's why I do feel so passionate about this stuff, that you're totally right. Folk do need to know about the emotional side of things, but it's important to underline that there's a lot of things they can do.
I actually done something similar to stop vaping. It was laser therapy. So it was almost exactly like what you said there, apart from instead of the tapping, it was a laser on points of your body. And it was, as a woman, Anne Penman, her name was. I was actually on a fucking vaping documentary on the BBC. But
were you?
Aye.
I don't even know that. I'm watching that later, man.
There's a snippet on YouTube. I can't find the full thing. I'll do a bit of research and try and find the full thing. But it was with Louise Hosey. She was the one that hosted it. BBC. You're in that world, Mark. You might know her name.
Her name rings a bell.
Aye, so STV it was, sorry. But basically it was a similar thing. Instead of tapping, it was like lasers on parts of your body. And she spoke in my ear, and she basically just was telling me that I'm no longer a vapor. I don't need this, that my brain will not allow me to touch a vape. And I've not touched a vape since. And I was smoking one of the disposable, like at least one a day, easy, on the toilet, in my bed, constant, and then this laser therapy. I've not touched it since, which is it's almost like the connection between vaping and my mouth. My brain will not allow that connection to happen, which is mad. But I suppose it is something similar to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like that.
It's cool, man. That is pretty cool, man. That's mad. But man, vaping in the toilet, right? That's mental. Not me. You've got to do, man. But I like the way you were talking about your own kind of coaching style, Mark, mate. And it's like, in my opinion, holding a mirror up to people. Sorry, I battered my elbow. Holding a mirror up to people, that is coaching. Like literally making them aware of their own decisions and that they are actually in control. That is a good summary of what actual coaching is. And it's very interesting. I'll ask you a question after this, right? And it relates to that style of coaching. Not to bash them, but like bodybuilding, right? That's very much do this, do that, and you'll get this. But see, when it comes to like, in my opinion, like lifestyle coaching, performance coaching, mindset coaching, whatever it may be, it's all about creating awareness in the individual and asking them the right kind of questions. And the reason why I asked this, mate, I noticed when I was doing a wee bit of research, mate, that you weren't a fan of like typical bodybuilding at any kind of point, mate. And obviously with the generation, that kind of stuff, man, obviously maybe in the early 2000s, particularly maybe even in the 90s and that, bodybuilding was big. That was the thing. Like now it's obviously a more kind of hybrid focused. In my opinion, the next big thing is going to be triathlons. Like I think that's going to just boom next. But back then, see, like not being a fan of the typical bodybuilding, see when you were trying to get your message across, did you feel a lot of pushback? Because a lot of people are like, nah, I only care about my physique. But you're like, you need to watch about obviously your emotional health, your mental health, your spiritual health. Was it hard to get that message out there, or were people interested?
Again, that's a brilliant question. So I was doing a wee bit of fitness coaching, not to the level you boys do. You have had a lot more success than I did, but I struggled to gain traction because I was saying the opposite to what the masses were hearing. Because all that back in the day, things have changed a bit now, but all that you would ever hear then was eat more protein, eat more protein, eat more protein. Guys were eating crazy amounts of protein. These protein powders that were loaded with additives, sugars, sucrose, stuff that was, and then I was going on fitness forums at the same time, and they were all talking about their bloating, their farting, all their digestive issues, and I'm like, can you not put two and two together? And because of what I'd gone through and what I knew about nutrition, I knew all of that stuff was bad news. Like, don't get me wrong, there's some brands are better than others, but there's quite a lot of really crappy protein powders out there, and folk are guzzling 2 and 3 shakes a day, messing up their guts and no seeing the bigger picture. So I was this tiny voice trying to tell people that, wait a minute, look after your long-term health, look more into your nutrition, what you're putting into your body, and be careful with this ultra-processed stuff. And don't just focus on grams of protein, because at the end of the day, you're going to sacrifice your overall health just for a big bicep, which isn't going to be there forever. And secondly, I also just felt it was the whole bodybuilding scene. I just found it quite unhealthy. Like there's a lot of guys, just like women, have got insecurities. They just don't speak up about them. And a lot of them, I can see a lot of these big guys in the gym, huge biceps, great shape, and I've got a lot of respect for the dedication and all of that they've got. But I know behind that, there's an insecurity fueling that training intensity and the need to be so strong and big on the outside because there's something going on inside that really needs to be addressed. I mean, why are you feeling the need to be so strong physically? What's the weakness within? Where is the crack in your psyche? Because it's there.
Yeah.
And some of them will discover it further down the line when they hit a midlife crisis. Some of them won't. And I just kind of try to do my wee bit to steer people or steer young men away from that and focus more on the discipline side of training and being lean and strong. That was my phrase. That was my catchphrase. Let's just get lean and strong rather than big and huge and have the big biceps and be gym bros, all of that stuff. I was kind of the antichrist to all of that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like, as well, it's very, very interesting, man, just how they kind of like generations work. Because as I say, Mark, like our generation now, I would say is coming away from bodybuilding. It will come back around. It always does. Everything works in cycles, right? But right now it's coming away. As I mentioned, obviously it's some kind of hybrid focus, like high rocks, outdoor training, running is the big thing now. But there is a big push on mental health and even like gut health becoming more prominent and all that kind of stuff, man. So it's like, it's very interesting that you were pushing us back, like not say back then, about 10 years ago, maybe plus as well, man. And it's like, do you feel that now, because this is becoming prominent, you can now help more people? Or do you feel as if like you're just a wee bit ahead of the game as such?
First thing I'd say is I think it's a really good move that it's going in a different direction, because I was like, where does this end? I mean, does somebody's peck need to explode? What's going on here? So it was just it was going in a pretty unhealthy direction. So you're right. I bump into Ryan in the gym and I don't see quite so many meatheads these days. I see young guys who are just living a healthy lifestyle, and it's really good because it gets them away from drink and all of that in the west of Scotland. I really think that's really, really helpful. For me personally, I kind of feel that I've done my bit. It was a phase of my life where fitness really benefited me in terms of discipline and keeping my head in a good space when I was dealing with all of that heavy stuff that I was telling you about before. But what really happened was with me, it was necessary for me to go even deeper beyond just the physical and the mental. I had to figure out all of this stuff so that I could get myself balanced and be successful in more important areas of my life. But what I really love is the likes of folk like you are coming through and you're teaching people this healthy approach to fitness and the mental benefits and the discipline they can get and how they can use all the positivity they take from the gym and spread into other areas of their lives. I love how there's that next generation coming through, and I reckon you guys will be able to do it 10 times better than me. So I applaud you.
Thank you, mate. I'll let Ryan also in a second. It's as well, just kind of touch on, see what I've noticed from my guys. And like, obviously our whole thing is about going the extra mile. What are you actually capable of? What's that unknown potential? A lot of people, especially in their 20s, when it comes to training and fitness, right? Like, and I think this is the benefit of social media. They're seeing a lot of what's actually getting done, and they ask themselves like, what's actually possible here? Do you know what I mean? As opposed to just doing like the usual, oh, I'm on a cut now, I'm on a bulk. Like, see, honestly, see when people mention that I'm cutting, I just yawn, I'm like boring. Right, and not in a bad way, I'm like, that's not my kettle of fish, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're just losing a bit of weight, mate, whatever. I'm not a bodybuilding coach, but what I like about it is people are very curious to what's possible. Do you know what I mean? Like, one of my long-term clients, Jordan, right? I'm in awe of the guy. And he couldn't run last year, or he said he couldn't run, right? And then he ran the last marathon. Remember me and we done that on the last day of Scotland run, Ryan? And then now he's training for an ultramarathon, all because he was curious about like, what am I actually capable of? And I feel like with this new style of training and the way the fitness world is moving, people are now proving to themselves what they're actually truly capable of, and the sense of purpose and achievement that comes in the fitness world now is a lot more than just, oh, I'm ready for a photo shoot now. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot more to it, and that's why you're seeing the healthier lifestyles are becoming more prominent, because, Christ, anyone who's not a bodybuilder that only looks at bodybuilding as the only way will get bored, and I feel like that's why we ended up in such a health crisis at the back end of the early 2000s, and in between 2010 2020 as well, because there wasn't anything else other than bodybuilding, if you want. Like, that was fundamentally that. But it's now, because you've got so many different things, like high rocks, triathlons are coming up, running's popular and that now. People are staying committed for longer because they're not just cutting and bulking. I think that's very, very interesting. It's a very exciting time for the fitness world. And as I say, me and Ryan, obviously, we're going to be the pioneers behind it, and other coaches that I know, which is a very, very exciting time. So it's pretty cool, and I'm happy everyone's getting away from bodybuilding, because fuck me, I couldn't be a coach if it was only bodybuilding. I'd be done. I'm like, fuck that. To be completely honest, man. But sorry, Ryan, you go. I'll chime in with that.
No, I was just going to say, like, I think this push towards, probably just in the last few years, maybe 5 years, this push towards mental health and stuff, where people are really wanting to get to know their inner self, and they're asking themselves tough questions. And the gym is good. Like, I think the gym and exercise is amazing, but if you're not asking the deep questions, even like the why am I doing this? I put a post up earlier about, like, why do I even fucking put the work in every day? Why do I even go to the gym? And I think just we live in a society now where people are a lot more interested in finding out who they are, rather than ignoring that and, like you say, just growing their biceps or what's the next step, or move my carbs up a bit. It's like, no, like, what is the fucking real meaning of this? What is the deep meaning of why you even get up in the morning, or why you want to follow a certain thing? And what's the saying again? If you know your why, you'll figure out the how. And I think people nowadays, I think as well, with a positive side of social media is people do see so many people following their why and doing these mad things like traveling, being a YouTube traveler, being a fitness coach. People are actually seeing normal people and people they know doing these things, and it's inspiring. Like, that's how I probably got into the industry, by seeing other people do things that I thought, that's cool, like, I can do that. And then I think as that time goes on, people start to figure out their if you want to call it, their path, their passion. And I think everyone has got a path to go down, and a lot of people ignore it, and some people maybe find it later in life. But I think in the kind of world we're living in now, it's becoming a much more positive place, in my opinion, compared to like maybe 20 years ago, where everyone was just kind of doing the same things, I suppose, like you said, in the fitness industry, for example. But now it's like people are like, let's go fucking deep. Let's go to the gym, but let's maybe take ayahuasca at the weekend as well.
Definitely, definitely.
Listen, I totally resonated with what you said there, mate, around people wanting to discover who they really are, because I feel that that's a concept that can be applied to everybody, because people are walking around unconsciously, not knowing who they really are. They're sleepwalking through life with all of these different behaviours. They're car crashing through different scenarios, not really realising what's driving their behaviours, what's in their psyche, where all of these traumas and all of that are hidden, because we've all got them to some degree. Now, what I love about the gym is that it's a gateway to personal development. I kind of feel it's like the first big step to really diving deeper into yourself, because you once you start really working on yourself physically, you start seeing the mental health benefits, something else shifts. It's almost like another door opens, and you're like, you can step and go a bit deeper here. You guys have done it. You can. There are other people that will do it, and it only happens to those people who get their priorities right with the gym. The people who are all focused on the physical and the muscles and this and that, they'll likely not walk through that next door. But see the other people who are going through the gym with the mental health benefits in mind, with the discipline, with the how it's going to have a positive knock-on effect in other areas of their life, they're the ones who will progress, and they will begin to learn more about themselves, and who knows where it will take them. It's a big, wide, wonderful world, but when they do start going down that path, it ultimately leads, the best case scenario is that it ultimately leads us on to living a life of purpose, doing what lights us up. And I think for everybody, there's no better purpose than just doing something that helps somebody else.
Nah, I can agree more with that, man. Can agree more, because it creates your own sense of purpose, mate. That is one of the ones, man. I think, mate, I speak for Ryan as well, man. There was a certain point in our life where we didn't really have much purpose, and both of us, I would say, have found purpose in helping other people, creating podcasts, telling our stories and that stuff, man, which is just a very privileged but exciting position to be in. It's the word excitement kind of comes up, because a lot of times, as you were mentioning there, like, going to the gym can be that kind of gateway to discovering who you actually are, and it can create excitement. And I think a lot of people just lack a bit of excitement in finding out what makes them tick and that stuff, man, which is a very exciting and positive place to be. But I think just before we kind of round this up, Mark, like, obviously there's a lot of lessons in there, and I would imagine someone listening to this might be struggling with something very, very similar. See, if you had someone, what advice would you give to someone who has been told off the doctor, this is it, black and white, and they don't want to accept that fate? What advice would you give to them?
So, the first one is that they should listen to their own intuition. Your gut is not going to give you the wrong answer. You, when you really begin to start tuning in and you commit to the path of figuring things out yourself. Don't get me wrong, I'm not slating medication or anything like that. I needed medication for a period to get me through a crisis point. But there comes a point where we can find another way. And when people go down that path, they stay committed to it and they have that belief that they'll get the answers. They will come. You can't say when they'll come, can't say how soon they'll come, but the right people will walk into your life. The right books will land in your lap. Just know that whatever your beliefs are, there's a bigger picture to all of this. And there's bigger powers there that can work with you if you just have that belief that you're looked after, and you will find a way. So yeah, ultimately have that belief in yourself, have that faith that you'll get better. And the beauty of this world we're living in as well, we've got the internet, we can tap into the internet, there's coaches, and there's always somebody who, no matter what you're going through right now, has already overcome it. So you can seek these people out, reach out to them, and I'm sure they'll be more than willing to lend you a hand.
No, I love that. I love that answer, man. Right, mate, you want to finish it up, mate? You got anything else?
No, mate. Thanks for joining us, Mark. Really appreciate that. There was a lot of powerful stuff in there, man. Thanks for sharing your expertise and sharing your journey and being so open and honest. And that's what this podcast is all about. To anyone listening back, like, real life, real people, real stories, no bullshit. Like, and I think if people listening to this are going to take a lot away from this, man, because I definitely did. So thanks a lot, mate, for coming on. I know that you're not on social media, so how do people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about you or read your books or listen to your podcast?
So if they want to check out any of my books, so there's a series of books on there. There's some fitness ones based around what we're talking about. My very first book was called Strength Training, Not Bodybuilding, which kind of says it all. So that there's some of those fitness books, but my most recent books is More Than a Gut Feeling, which was all about my gut health journey and overcoming IBS and colitis. And my other book is The Healing Power of Ayahuasca, which we've obviously been talking about as well. If you just simply type my name into Amazon, so it's Marc, M-A-R-C, and then Mclean, M-C-L-E-A-N, those books will come up. But for anyone, there might be somebody listening to this with colitis, or they might have a relative that's got colitis. I would just recommend that they check out my podcast, which is the Colitis Healing Path, or they can check out my website, which is colitisremission.co.uk.
Brilliant, mate. What I'll do is I'll get all the links and put them into the show notes so that people will, if they want, they can click the link, because you know what people are like. It's like, fuck, how do I search that? But thanks again for joining us, man. Thank you for everyone that's listened so far. If you took a lot away from this episode, let us know. Give us a message on Instagram. And if you've got someone that you think would benefit from this, then send them the episode, post it in your story. As Kieran says, send it to your mom, send it to your dad, send it to your granny, make some noise.
Mate. Everyone, anyone and everyone, mate. Thank you.
Aye, well, thanks for joining us, and we will see you all in the next episode.
Catch you.